The story I have for you today is about a boy rapidly becoming a young man and starting to carve out a bright future for himself until a night on the town with his best friend changed everything. That was 28 years ago, and the mystery of his disappearance still lingers, even today. This is the story of Damien Nettles. But before we get into today's story, my name is Dorian. If you're a fan of the mysterious, disasters, unsolved cases, or any strange, dark stories, then you've come to the right place. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. Okay, let's get into today's story. The Isle of Wight is a charming little island just 2 miles from the southern coast of England, known for its rich history and beautiful scenery. It's a favorite place for many British people to retire. During summer, the population grows to 140,000 as it turns into a busy spot for tourists. Many come to the island, often called Dinosaur Island, to see its collection of dinosaur fossils and ancient treasures from its Jurassic period. Normally, the island is a peaceful place. Damien Nettles was born in Singapore on June 21, 1980. Along with his 3 siblings, Damien moved between countries during his early years with his English mother, Valerie, and American father, Ed. In 1990, they settled on the Isle of Wight. Damien was a typical teenager of the mid-90s. He loved wearing Doc Martens, listening to bands like Nirvana, Blur, and the Beatles, staying up late and hanging out with friends. He had dreams of becoming a marine biologist, but Damien's story took a dark turn. On November 2, 1996, it was a chilly, gloomy day on the Isle of Wight. That evening, 16-year-old Damien Nettles put on his favorite outfit, blue jeans, a black sweater, and his signature Doc Martens. He got a ride from his dad, Ed, to East Cowes, excited to hang out with his best friend, Chris Boone. When Damien got out of the car, Ed reminded him to be back by midnight. Damien, always courteous, thanked his dad for the ride, agreed to the curfew with his usual smile, and headed off towards Chris's house. Ed never knew that was last time he saw his son. Neither Damien nor Chris had told their parents about their plans to drink that night. This might seem unusual in other parts of the world, but in the UK and much of Europe, it's fairly common for teenagers. Their evening started at 7:30 p.m. at a house party thrown by a friend. However, the party was more of a small gathering than they had hoped for, so they decided to leave at 9:30 and headed to a nearby off-license to buy some alcohol. Though the legal age for drinking in the UK is 18, Damien, who stood tall at 6'4", often passed for older. Confident they wouldn't be asked for ID, the boys tried their luck. Their gamble paid off, and they left the store with 2 bottles of Special Red, a strong, inexpensive cider. Next, they took the ferry from East to West Cowes. Other passengers noted that the 2 were talkative, but not noticeably drunk. Once they arrived on Cowes High Street, Damien and Chris attempted to continue their night by entering several pubs, hoping Damien's height would help them blend in. Despite their efforts, they were turned away from every pub they tried to enter. Though Damien's height hadn't helped them get into any pubs, the unpredictable British weather was as reliable as ever. It suddenly started pouring rain, and rather than hanging around outside the bars looking like a couple of soaked rats, Damien and Chris decided to end their night out. They walked together toward Northwood Park, and at the steps, they went their separate ways. That was at 10:30 p.m. Chris headed home, but Damien's night was far from over. Initially, he started walking toward his house, but then he changed his mind and turned back to the high street. This time, without the younger-looking Chris by his side, Damien managed to get into the pubs more easily. Several locals later confirmed seeing him in various pubs over the next hour. Around 11:15 p.m., a witness spotted a young man, fitting Damien's description, looking confused in the car park of the Harbor Lights pub, trying to open the door of a blue Ford Fiesta. After a night out, like many young Brits, Damien's cravings led him straight to Yorkie's fish and chip shop for some classic greasy comfort food. CCTV footage from Yorkie's captured Damien entering at 11:34 p.m. He was seen mingling and chatting with other customers before placing his order. Damien was naturally sociable, a larger-than-life figure, known for striking up conversations with just about anyone. However, the footage suggested his chattiness might have been amplified by more than just the cider he'd been drinking, possibly even a stronger substance. Damien left the chip shop at 11:39 p.m. Shortly after, he attempted to board a bus, mistakenly asking the driver to take him to Cows, not realizing he was already there. Confused, he tried to take a picture of the driver with a camera he had, thanked the driver politely, and then awkwardly left the bus. A nearby witness in a parked car reported seeing a young man resembling Damien at the bus stop. This young man approached the car, got the witness to roll down the window, and nervously whispered, "They're watching us," repeating the phrase before vanishing down the high street. The final confirmed sighting of Damien was at 12:06 a.m., walking along Sun Hill toward his home. The streets were deserted by then. When his family woke up the next morning and found Damien hadn't come home, they were immediately alarmed. This was completely out of character for him. Valerie and Ed tried to reach him, but to no avail. They soon approached the local police to report their son missing. Now, almost 28 years later, the mystery of Damien Nettles' whereabouts and what happened to him that November night in 1996 remains unsolved. The last evidence of him being alive is the surveillance footage from Yorkie's fish and chip shop. In cases of missing persons like Damien's, there are typically 5 main theories considered. He may have run away, taken his own life, suffered an accident, been abducted, or been murdered. Initially, the police did not treat Damien's disappearance with the urgency it warranted. When Ed and Valerie reported that their son had not returned home, the police dismissed their concerns, suggesting that Damien might have simply gone away for the weekend. Their response was lackluster, and they even recorded Damien's age incorrectly as 19 instead of 16, thus categorizing him as a missing adult rather than a missing child, which significantly affected the urgency of the search efforts. When Mrs. Nettles called the police station days later, seeking updates, her concerns were met with disbelief. She was labeled as a hysterical mother, and officers even told her that her frequent calls were hindering the investigation. This dismissive attitude early in the investigation may have missed critical opportunities to uncover what truly happened to Damien on that cold, dreary night. It was clear to Valerie and the rest of the Nettles family that Damien hadn't simply chosen to ignore them. Moreover, on an island as small as the Isle of Wight, it seemed unlikely that he could just disappear without trace. The island's close-knit community meant that Damien, a tall and distinctive young man at 6'4", would have been noticed if he had simply wandered off. News of his disappearance spread quickly, yet no sightings of him were reported. The theory of Damien's mental state leading to a possible self-inflicted end was considered, but didn't align with how his friends and family perceived him. Damien was known for his love of life, and while he had recently endured a breakup with his girlfriend, Abby Scott, those close to him did not believe he was severely affected by it. There was speculation that, despondent after his meal at the fish and chip shop, Damien might have walked into the sea, never to return. However, Abby herself suspected a more ominous reason behind his disappearance. Towards the end of their relationship, Damien had become involved with a group of older men known for their dubious and criminal activities, particularly in the local drug trade. In the 1990s, despite its picturesque setting, the Isle of Wight harbored a darker side. The island had its own criminal underworld, including a group of about a dozen drug dealers operating primarily around East and West Cowes, areas where Damien was last seen. Among these was Bunny Eels, a notorious figure with over 30 criminal convictions. He lived with Nicky McNamara, a volatile man known for his aggressive behavior and drug use. There was also Shirley Barrett, Nicky's girlfriend, notorious for her lengthy criminal record and dangerous behavior, and Danny Spencer, another associate who contributed little to improving the local community's reputation. This group's dangerous and illegal activities made them key figures in the island's darker circles, and Damien's association with them led many to believe that his disappearance might be connected to this criminal element rather than a personal decision to disappear or harm himself. Damien and Chris were known to have a smoke now and then, mostly buying from a group called the Dirty Dozen, who hung around Bunny's place. While Chris didn't spell it out, there's a good chance they were bouncing between pubs that night, not just for a good time, but to find someone familiar who could hook them up. The Dirty Dozen had quite the reputation, so naturally, whispers started to circulate that maybe they had something to do with Damien going missing. You know how it is. The stories varied depending on who you heard them from. For the longest time, these were just rumors, nothing concrete, just suspicions cast towards the usual suspects. But then, in 2002, something big happened. Someone who used to deal with Nikki McNamara came out of the woodwork. This person, who kept their identity hidden, told BBC journalists a pretty shocking story. They claimed Damien had a bit of debt with Nikki over some pot, and things got ugly. According to this source, Nikki lost his temper and hit Damien so hard that he died right there. Then, Nikki supposedly kept Damien's body hidden in his house for 3 weeks before burying him in Parkhurst Forest. The Nettles family pushed hard for the police to check out the forest with some cadaver dogs, but the authorities weren't buying the story. They didn't trust the source. Some locals weren't having it, though. They were determined to find out the truth themselves. They tried to get permission to dig up the site, but no go from the police. They went ahead with their search anyway, but unfortunately, they didn't find anything. So, where does that leave us? Was the tip-off just another rumor, or was there some truth to it? Without any real evidence turning up, Damien's disappearance remains as baffling as ever. Wow, that's quite a turn of events, isn't it? So another source later spotted Nikki McNamara out on West Cowes High Street right when Damien was supposed to be at Yorkie's. And Nikki wasn't alone. He was with his notorious crew, Bunny, Shirley, and Danny. Could be a coincidence since it was a busy Saturday night, but the plot thickens with what happened the next day. This source says they saw Nikki burning something that looked like a black sweater in an oil drum, all the while muttering, "I'm a damned man." And the smell? It was like burning flesh. Pretty chilling, right? But here's the kicker. None of these claims have ever been proven. They're just accounts that, while gripping, need to be taken with a grain of salt. What could really have broken this case wide open would be video evidence of Damien and Nikki's paths crossing that night. The high street was covered by 7 security cameras, which should have caught something, right? But, get this, those tapes that might have held the answers? They were all accidentally recorded over by the police before anyone could take a good look. That footage is gone forever because of a blunder. Can you believe that? The Nettles family, fed up with all these police slip-ups, decided to hire a private investigator. But no sooner had the PI started digging, the police came knocking on his door, warning him off the case. They think Damien might have tried to swim across the Solent after a night of drinking and simply drowned or succumbed to the cold. They suggested he'd never be found. So many what-ifs and might-have-beens, right? Every lead, every rumor just adds another layer of mystery to Damien's case. It's a real puzzle, one that's been haunting everyone involved for years. That theory about Damien possibly trying to swim the Solent and never coming back up doesn't sit well with anyone who knows the waters around there. Local fishermen will tell you, the Solent isn't one to keep its secrets. Whatever goes in usually washes back out. Damien's dad, Ed, even had a chat with Captain Henry Wrigley, the harbor master in Cowes. They went over tidal charts and movements, and the captain was pretty clear. If Damien had ended up in the water that night, the tides would have brought him back to shore. Even the harbor master thought the police's drowning theory didn't make any sense. Not one to be easily scared off, the private investigator hired by the Nettles family kept on the case despite the police's warnings. He started by talking to Shirley Barrett, Nikki McNamara's girlfriend. Off the record, Shirley dropped a bombshell. She claimed that Nikki and another man had picked up Damien that night on Bering Road, took him somewhere out of sight, and did something terrible to him. She didn't give away much, but she made it crystal clear to the PI that talking about her confession could be deadly. Shirley's story seemed a bit more credible when, in 2005, someone else came forward. This person claimed to have seen Nikki that same night, pinning Damien against a wall in West Cowes. And guess who was there watching? Danny Spencer. This could very well be the other man Shirley was hinting at. So, what do you think? Did Danny play a role in whatever happened to Damien? It seems like the deeper we dig, the more twists we find in this story. It's like every piece of the puzzle just leads to more questions. Over the years, countless theories about what happened to Damien Nettles have circulated through the Isle of Wight. Some say he was killed defending a friend, others believe he was trafficked off the island by boat, and there are even grimmer rumors of him being chopped up and used as fish bait. But the most persistent suspicion has always circled back to Nicky McNamara. And for Nicky, this shadow of doubt never lifted, not even after his death. Nicky passed away in 2002 from what was officially called an accidental overdose. He was found in his girlfriend Shirley's bathtub, heroin injected into his back, in a house grimly nicknamed the House of Death because of the frequent overdoses there. Shirley discovered him days after he had died, despite being in the house the whole time. She claimed she was too high to even notice. Even after Nicky's death, nobody has come forward with concrete information about Damien's disappearance. The few who have spoken up have always done so anonymously. Danny Spencer, Nicky's old friend, still lives on the island and seems to haunt the case like a ghost. When he's had a few drinks, he's known to mutter about Damien, ominously repeating, "If there's no body, there's no crime. No body, no crime." That he's gotten hold of confidential witness statements that cast suspicion on him and Nicky only adds to the intrigue. Whether he uses this information to silence others is uncertain, though at least one witness has retracted their statement under mysterious circumstances. The police have questioned Danny but never charged him due to insufficient evidence. Despite multiple arrests over the years, no one has been charged in connection with Damien's disappearance. It's also troubling that the police have no logs or recordings from their interviews with the suspects. Bunny Eels, another figure tied to that fateful night, remains an enigma. Journalists have tried to pry the truth from him, given his proximity to Nicky and his alleged interactions with Damien. Although Damien's friend Chris admitted they used to buy from Bunny, Bunny denies ever meeting Damien. It's a tangled web of denials and dead ends, leaving everyone wondering just how much he knows but isn't saying. It's a chilling thought that despite the years and all the leads, the truth about what happened to Damien Nettles might never come to light. The lingering question of his fate continues to cast a long, dark shadow over the island, leaving a lingering sense of unfinished business in the community. Valerie Nettles has been vocal about her dissatisfaction with how the police handled her son's case, calling their efforts lackluster, shoddy, and pitiful. On their part, the police claim to have dedicated 2 decades to the investigation, taking 357 witness statements and reviewing over 2,500 documents. Yet, the results, or lack thereof, have fueled suspicions among many that something more sinister might be at play on the Isle of Wight. In a particularly troubling revelation, it came to light that the police had edited CCTV footage from Yorkies, specifically cutting out a segment that showed a police car passing by. This has raised eyebrows and led to questions about the true motives behind their actions. Was this a simple oversight or something more deliberate? The possible reasons for the police's failures range from sheer incompetence or inexperience to more disturbing theories of intentional mishandling to possibly protect someone involved in Damien's disappearance, or even themselves. But of course, without hard evidence, these thoughts remain in the realm of speculation. Following years of frustration and heartache, Damien's family eventually left the Isle of Wight, moving to Dallas, Texas, to escape the overwhelming memories tied to their loss. On the 27th anniversary of Damien's disappearance, Valerie shared her feelings with News on the Wight, expressing a lingering hope for resolution, yet acknowledging the harsh reality of living in the limbo of unresolved loss. She described it as a world where many families are caught, unable to fully live in the present, perpetually haunted by the past. The tragic story of Damien Nettles is not unique in the broader context of missing persons. In the UK alone, around 6,000 people are reported missing each week. While most are found within 48 hours, others, like Damien, disappear into the shadows, leaving behind families who wait for years, decades, or even forever, clinging to hope for some form of closure. The mystery of Damien Nettles' disappearance reminds us of the pain that comes with not knowing. We hope his family finds the answers they need someday. If you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to our channel. Click the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.